You know, there are just some heroes which just can't catch a fucking break. Shemai folks, I am Mashup Matt, and welcome to the amazing Spider-Man on the PC. Now I know what you're all thinking. Matt, this game was released in 2012 or whenever this was, 2012, and it's been out for ages. Why are you playing this now? Well, calm down, because I'm not here to talk about the game I'm playing today. What I am going to do today is just have a little bit of a discussion with you guys about what I think the Spider-Man PS4 game will bring us later this year. So I'm gonna play some game footage while I'm talking to you. Now, please, I want to hear your thoughts about the Spider-Man PS4 game either on my Twitter or in the comments below. So we'll just get straight into it. So I'll just start doing a little bit of stuff. We're in the middle of the zombie apocalypse here, but anyway. So Spider-Man PS4 is set to release this year, and it's being developed by Insomniac Games. Now, Insomniac are the guys who did the Sunset Overdrive game. Now, Sunset Overdrive was a sort of a quirky take on the zombie apocalypse, and if anyone's played it, so I remember a few reviewers stating it was a bit like sort of a variation of oh god, I'm in a little bit of trouble here. There was some like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater stuff in there because of the way that the characters moved. The combat in the game was mainly about traversal, about the way that movement was more the key. The more you moved, the more chance you had of surviving. And to be honest, I think that's what they're looking to do with Spider-Man PS4. I think they would be a little bit stupid if they don't integrate combat into a movement system in a way that you are sort of moving between each enemy to sort of a combo run. Not really reminiscent of the Arkham games, because they tried this in this game, and I just think the combat in this game a little bit formulaic, very, samey to the Arkham games. But around the time when Arkham City had just been released, everyone was trying to do that type of combat system, the free-flowing counter-attacks and whatever. Yes, that's all well and good. And it did add a level to a Spider-Man game's combat that we haven't seen for a very, very long time. But if any of you have watched, especially the Spider-Man cartoons, Spider-Man is always on the move. He does not stand still. Yes, he can fight villains hand-to-hand. That's a given. Most heroes can do that. But Spider-Man is known for his mobility, getting the jump on people. Oh, I'll just take this guy down very quickly. He's known for running in between enemies and keeping himself on the go throughout his combat. And I think that's the way that Insomniac should be looking at developing the game. I don't know, they could have already had the mechanic in mind. But we always know that Spider-Man likes to sort of swing around and use that as his combat style, rather than, a straight up beat them up, a bit like what I'm doing here. I said, they were trying to make this the Arkham game for Spider-Man, and I don't think, while it's enjoyable, I like it, but with Goons, Spider-Man seems to sort of run between them all, webbing them up at different times, making them turn on each other, rather than fighting one at a time in a huge crowd like a martial artist. Yeah, Spider-Man isn't really a martial artist. He uses agility, he uses his spider sense, he uses different things to defeat his enemies, and I just think that would be such a better way of integrating a combat system into Spider-Man PS4. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was what kind of story will the game have? Now, we know that it's not a Spider-Man towards the beginning of his career. It's actually a very experienced web-slinger. He's been in the game for a couple of years. He sort of knows the superhero act a lot better than sort of most of its gaming predecessors certainly have. He's a lot more used to it. Maybe he suffered even worse. Maybe he won't be the complete joke cracking web slinger that we're all used to. It'll be interesting to see what kind of story arc they're going to take with it. We don't know who's in the game yet. Well, I certainly don't know who's in the game yet, in terms of villains. But you just have to look at Spider-Man's comics to try and find something with a little bit more, the experienced Spider-Man in it, rather than, a high school student or a guy in his early 20s. This guy, I'm not saying he's going to be old. I'm not saying that, he's coming to the end of being Spider-Man. But what story arcs would you like to see? What would you like them to implement? Or should they just do something completely original? I think doing something original would add so much more to the game. Obviously, it's not based on any upcoming films. It's not based on the upcoming Marvel Cinematic Universe, as far as I can tell. Even though it seems that they've gone the route of making Spider-Man's eyes sort of emote as he goes along in the game. But apparently he's married, he's got a kid, and all that. So all we've seen is a reveal trailer, and that showed us a little bit of the mechanics. And if you see, I was talking about the movement, and there's one part where Spidey just comes down on a guy and just flips him over and smashes him straight into the ground. That's the sort of combat I want to see. And then you want to have a bit more variety then with the supervillains, because obviously there's going to be supervillains in the game. It's not a Spider-Man game if there isn't. So yeah, it's going to be a slightly more experienced Spider-Man in this game. But what older Spider-Man story arcs would you like to see in the game? I would be very disappointed if the game looks anything like this, what I'm playing now. I'm playing this on PC at ultra settings, max settings, whatever you can get in this game. And just look at these character models. They're not great, are they? And don't get me wrong, this game first came out, I think just as the PS4 was coming into... No, it was just before PS4 came into it. So it's 2012, I believe this game came out. And don't get me wrong, I think running this on PC, yeah, PC, yeah, it's always going to be better and whatnot. But I think I would be very disappointed if it doesn't rival sort of the more expansive superhero games. I'm not saying it's going to be groundbreaking like Arkham Knight was in terms of superhero games, or how The Last of Us looks, or how the Uncharted games look. We just want a good-looking Spider-Man game. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was an absolute piece of garbage in terms of its graphics. The only character model they put any sort of work into was Spider-Man himself. And nothing else. The rest of the character models look insanely bland, and I just really hope that they give the whole game some polish. I think, Spider-Man fans deserve a good game. This was a decent game by all means, but it's not a great Spider-Man game. My favourite Spider-Man game is Spider-Man 2 on the PS2, but even that, for a last-gen console, didn't look particularly great. But it was a hell of a lot of fun. The story was good. It did run pretty well. I'm not saying... Alright, perhaps I'm dumbing it down a little bit in terms of how it looked. But the next one then, the one I go back and play, and I've played it on the channel already, is the Ultimate Spider-Man. Now, I know it's set in the comic book, in the Ultimate Spider-Man comic books, and that's the way that the game is designed, in its artistic way. That's how it is meant to look, and they do that very, very well. It pulls off the comic book look so brilliantly that it's you feel immersed. And I just think with some Spider-Man games you just don't feel immersed. Don't get me wrong, the web slinging in this game is actually quite good. I know this whole thing about it not connecting to buildings or whatever, and they ratified that, didn't they, in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but then everything else went to pot. So the web slinging, I think they just need to... The web slinging thing is not going to be so much of a problem as long as they keep, the core mechanics of it looking good. And it could be that you add a momentum system to something like that. The more you go, the more... Perhaps you'll have, like, combo runs where you gain experience by making stunt runs across the sea, perhaps. Not just swinging. You can run along the sides of buildings, and make combo runs, which then progress Spider-Man even more. That's how you build up his skill tree, because every game's gonna have a skill tree, and Spider-Man doesn't exactly lend himself to that kind of thing, but it would work quite well if it's going to be an open world game, because it seems to be it's going to be an open world game from what I can tell. And I can't imagine the Spider-Man game being anything other. The last linear one we had was Edge of Time, and that one was really, really bad. But then Shattered Dimensions was really good, which was also a bit of a linear game, but you did have really open environments where, again, you could sort of use Spider-Man's movement in a really, really clever way sometimes. But again, the combat was just hack and slash. It was button mashing. There was nothing more to it than that. I just it's going to be about timing in terms of what I want to see, the movement system and all that. Something's just occurred to me. What if, we see Spider-Man with a different suit in the game? Now, again, I have no idea what the story of this game is going to be, but could we see something to do with the Clone Saga? Because I know that happens, doesn't it, when Spider-Man is married, he's got children. I think it does. Anyway, if I'm wrong, correct me. Please correct me. I don't want to be giving you any false information on this. But perhaps we could have a Clone Saga. I know the Clone Saga is a bit of a poison chalice when it comes to Spider-Man games. But that would be, a bit of a cool storyline to add into a Spider-Man game. I don't know. This is just stuff that I'm thinking of. We've had Venom in games before, so I think we've had enough of seeing Venom in Spider-Man games. I certainly have, anyway, especially with Carnage being in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, the video game. I'm over the whole symbiote thing, to be completely honest with you. Anyway, guys, that's it for this episode. Well, this video about my thoughts on Spider-Man PS4 coming sometime in 2017. I cannot wait to play. There were a couple of games this year that I wanted to play more than ever. One was Horizon Zero Dawn, and another one is Spider-Man PS4. And you've heard my views. Do not take anything I have said as fact, because I don't know. This is the stuff that I would like to see in the game. This is the sort of mechanics that I would love to see Insomniac put into the new Spider-Man game. And I just think with the way that they did Sunset Overdrive, I would like them to continue in that kind of vein when it comes to the Spider-Man game in terms of the movement. The trailer, you can't really tell from the trailers what the game's going to be like. So I just hope that the movement system in Spider-Man, it's not one that, Spider-Man games can feel very jilted. They feel like you can stand still sometimes in the combat sections. Specifically, the Ultimate Spider-Man did it actually quite well, where you could move between each of them. Perhaps a little bit like that mechanic when you're in combat, but a bit more where you jump over people, you use your weapons a bit more, you can manipulate them into fighting other people, and so on and so forth. But I really want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. If any of you are looking forward to playing Spider-Man PS4 this year, please either let me know on Twitter or let me know in the comments below, and we can have a discussion about it. I would really love to hear your opinions on it. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed what you've seen here, please hit that like button. It would be very, very appreciated. And if you do not want to miss a single second of any videos that I put out, please press subscribe and you'll be notified the instant any videos are uploaded by my good self. Once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. And remember, keep mashing it up out there. That was a really rubbish punch, but I'll see all you folks next time.